Good. I think we're good. Good morning, everybody. I hope the sound is okay. I don't have any indication one way or the other on this system, but good morning. Here we are. Let me get my notes open. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram. The last time, sound is great. Thank you for that, Ashley. And welcome, by the way, on Instagram to Christina and Ashley. As a reminder, I know there's a bunch of people on the other platforms, but I don't get to see your names. You can say hi in the notes if you want to, in the comments on your various platforms. But I can see who's on Instagram. But then I have to switch my screen to get there. The last time I saw you was Thursday, so a couple of days ago. I was in Chicago for the Turnaround Management Association dinner. They call it in Toronto, it's the Newsmaker dinner. In Chicago, I think it's the executive something. I don't know what they call it. It's a once-a-year event where they hire a big-name speaker to come in, and there was about 600 people there, all from the turnaround management industry. And I was invited by Aaron Hammer, the bankruptcy slayer. Bankruptcy, I forget what he calls himself on social media, but Aaron Hammer. And thank you for that invitation. And the guest speaker was Bob Costas. So you can see that on my social media. NBC sports fame, has done all the Olympics, big baseball guy, Muhammad Ali eulogy, boxing commentator, obviously. And wow, what a storyteller. That's what I took away from all this. His ability, Bob Costas's ability to tell a story is really second to none. Well, here we are, November 26th, 2024, episode 306. Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. Sounds great from Instagram. Thank you for that. Loving this. Thank you, Christina. Is Bitcoin going to crash? Is Bitcoin going to crash again? Let's talk about that this morning. Yeah, we're going to get to the tariffs. I know that's the number one story of the day from the well, let's talk about Bitcoin first. So it's on fire these days. If you don't follow it, hopefully you're following it if you're an investor. But if you, by the way, don't take investment advice from me. You know, I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not accredited. I'm not qualified. I'll tell you what I'm doing. You make up your own mind, get your own professional advice. Take my advice on your business. Take my advice on your business for sure. But in terms of buying and selling securities, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy. Well, Bitcoin has been on fire since the election, if you don't follow it, but it did drop big time this morning when I was logging on. It was down from, close to 100 a couple of days ago, $100,000 to 91,000. It's 92, almost $93,000 right now. So it took a big drop yesterday, but in the big picture, it's been a price surge. It's been up 500% since early 2023. So that's pretty good, 500%. Why? Well, a number of reasons, but one of them would be, look at, I've told you once, I tell you 100 times, there is zero utility to Bitcoin. There's no purpose to it whatsoever. So therefore, the price goes up and down for no other reason than supply and demand, like most of the market, but pure on Bitcoin. It has zero utility. And so if more buyers are coming, and there's a fixed number of units of Bitcoin, 21 million, something like that. And so that never changes. So if there's more demand than supply, prices are going to go up. If there's more supply than demand, prices are going to go down and perhaps create some fear and then go down rapidly. That's what happened with FTX when it dropped to $16,000, whatever that was. It feels like a year ago, might have been 2 years ago. I don't recall. So why has it jumped up so much? Regulatory approvals. The SEC, U.S. Securities and Exchange, has approved multiple Bitcoin ETF, exchange-traded funds, including a BlackRock exchange-traded fund, which is sort of a low-cost way to buy a fund that in turn buys Bitcoin. And so you don't have to go through this whole physical custody rigmarole. Do I own a wallet? Is it virtual? Do I remember this unique passcode stuff that makes everything so complicated? You can just buy this fund through your brokerage account, and that creates more demand because it's easier for someone like me, perhaps somebody like you, to go off and buy and trade on Bitcoin. So you have regulated funds, which makes life easier for the financial community at large to go and buy this stuff. And you have companies such as BlackRock that have filed that have opened a spot for ETFs, and BlackRock being billions and billions of dollars of assets under management. And with the election, you had Donald Trump, who clearly is a fan of Bitcoin and was courting the cryptocurrency community. And so all of this is paving the way for acceptance of Bitcoin as an asset class, as an investment product for institutional investment. Doesn't mean the institutions will want to own it, but it is paving the way, all of this regulatory work, for that becoming an acceptable asset class. And when that happens, because none of the institutions have really dived in yet to Bitcoin. So we don't have that demand. And when you have that demand, who knows? Who knows? Sky's the limit on Bitcoin. But not anytime soon. Don't invest in it because of me. I shouldn't say not anytime soon, but there will be volatility. That's what I'm trying to say. Well, the Wall Street Journal yesterday said, what's flying higher than Bitcoin? The software company buying up Bitcoin, from the Wall Street Journal. Bitcoin prices have surged 30% since election day. MicroStrategy, the software company, MicroStrategy, has climbed even faster. The software company turned itself into a Bitcoin buying machine in 2020, and now holds some 36 billion worth of tokens. So this is a software company that I had never heard of. I looked at it last night, and it seems to be AI-driven business intelligence, whatever, and it's a legit business. So they jumped on the AI bubble, but that wasn't a big enough bubble for them. So they thought, we're going to take extra money and we're going to raise equity. We're going to get a bunch of debt. So we're going to borrow a bunch of money, and we're going to use that to buy Bitcoin. So we'll be both on the Bitcoin bubble and the AI software bubble. And so for many investors, the stock is a more popular Bitcoin play than the cryptocurrency itself, and they're willing to pay up for it. With a $91 billion market value, MicroStrategy is trading at more than twice the value of its underlying Bitcoin. Yeah, except it has a legit AI-driven business intelligence software business as well. So Wall Street Journal, I'm not sure that that's a sound analysis on your part. The shares of MicroStrategy have soared more than 77% since November 5th, with traders betting that the digital asset industry will flourish under Trump. Bitcoin prices are hovering below 94,000 after trading at 100,000 last week. This might be a Sunday or Monday past story. As I said, it's 92,000 as I was logging in this morning. MicroStrategy found a way to outperform Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, the company's founder and executive chairman, said in an interview, the way that we outperform Bitcoin, in essence, is we just lever up Bitcoin. So he's borrowing a bunch of money to buy Bitcoin, and he's calling that a business. Here's the real, no one talks about this. Everybody talks about the risk of MicroStrategy having too much concentration in Bitcoin, both for MicroStrategy, but what the real worry is for Bitcoin. If MicroStrategy crashes, they own so much Bitcoin, is it going to impact and crater the Bitcoin market because they own so much of it? But what nobody's really talking about is the brilliance of this move. And the brilliance of this move, remember I said the institutions don't treat Bitcoin as a legit asset class yet because of the regulation, and this is all over the world, and it's in various degrees of, hey, I can stick my toe into it if I want to, right, this and that. But here's a way to sidestep all of that, because you could just buy as a stock shares of MicroStrategy, and that's a way to backdoor your way into a Bitcoin exposure if you're an institution. And so I think there's a lot of that going on. And also, I haven't checked, but I'm certain there's an option chain on MicroStrategy, so you could buy options and you could lever up even further. Although, as we'll talk about in a second, you could lever up through options directly on these ETF funds right now. So Saylor says he's just getting started on his audacious plan of borrowing money to buy Bitcoin. He unveiled the plan just days before the election to hire investment banks to raise $42 billion in capital over 3 years through stock and bond offerings to buy more tokens. His company had $4.3 billion in convertible debt outstanding at October 29. MicroStrategy's mix of Bitcoin maximalism and Wall Street style financial engineering has paid off for investors, but skeptics question whether it is sustainable. Wow, look at the viewers we have on this show. Welcome everybody. Say hi in the comments if you're up for it. It's great to see you all here. All I have to do is put Bitcoin in the title and the show explodes. Saylor's heavy use of leverage and borrowed money to buy Bitcoin backfired during the 2022 crypto market meltdown, with the collapse created by FTX, dragged Bitcoin prices below 16,000. And at that time, Saylor got ousted as CEO because he was already bullish and long on Bitcoin. And a fellow named Andrew Left, a prominent short seller and founder of Citron Research, says this stock, meaning MicroStrategy, Wirecash, hi, thank you for joining us on X. Has detached from reality, says this short. Well, that's what a short does. The whole point of a short is to cause you to panic and want to sell your stock so the price goes down so that he makes money on his short position. Doesn't mean he's wrong, by the way. Left describes himself as bullish on Bitcoin itself and praised MicroStrategy in 2020 when it first began amassing Bitcoin. But in a Thursday post on X, Left said he had taken out a bet against MicroStrategy. He went short on that, betting that it's going to go down, which caused the stock to tumble. Some analysts warned that MicroStrategy's steady run up is part of a broader investor euphoria for speculative assets, and it will inevitably collapse. David Traynor, founder of research firm New Constructs, said MicroStrategy is a bad business by conventional metrics. For instance, it has posted a net loss for the past 3 quarters. I was looking at it last night. It's got huge overheads. Huge. I think there's a lot of euphoria and money spending going on at MicroStrategy. I agree. It is going to crash. Hey, Catherine, from Heaven, where I moved back to take care of. Good to see you again. Thanks for the update, Catherine. So some investors are turning to ETFs that seek the return of MicroStrategy shares using borrowed money or derivative contracts. So I talked about these ETFs, in particular the BlackRock ETF at the opening of this, and this is a way to really commoditize and make it easier to get in and out and trade Bitcoin without having to worry about the custody or the physical custody. If you have a wallet or whatever people are doing these days, this turns it into a security, makes it easier to trade, and it makes it easier to trade derivative products based on that ETF, like options. And so one such fund, the Defines Daily Target 2 times long MSTR ETF, aims to double the daily return of the stock and has attracted $1.8 billion in assets since it launched in August. So they've created derivative products, options on MicroStrategy stock and on these ETF. What do we have here? Let's just skip through this. Even some Bitcoin bulls have expressed unease. This is from the Wall Street Journal again, about the risk investors face by betting on MicroStrategy. Mike Novogratz, the billionaire CEO of crypto trading firm Galax Digital, warned in an interview on CNBC on Thursday, that's a few days ago, that Bitcoin could fall 20%. It could fall 20% after peaking at $100,000, in part because of the leverage bets on MicroStrategy available through some exchange-traded funds. Quote, the crypto community is levered to the gills right now, so there will be a correction. Not maybe, there will be a correction. So as I said, when I was creating these notes this morning, it had dropped. The Bitcoin had dropped to $91,000. If I update right now, oh, look at, we're already above 93 again. Is this the correction? Is this what would that be? 5%, 7%, somewhere in that range correction? I don't know about that. Let's talk about, remember, a couple of points that I think we need to remember. There's zero utility. There is no purpose, use for Bitcoin whatsoever. It is complete, should I say Ponzi? Should that be the word? And I'm not saying this negatively, by the way. It is what it is, but understand it has zero utility. It is not a fiat currency. It is not a hedge to inflation. It's none of those things. It will be ultimately someday. I think the real play here is that institutions are starting to get into it. So if MicroStrategy has levered up so much to buy Bitcoin, what happens when there's a small correction and they get in trouble on their debt? That's the real question. Vinny Lingham, I'm not even sure who that is, some sort of influencer on X in the financial world, had a post on this, which I thought summed it up. Unpopular opinion: MicroStrategy will ultimately and eventually do more harm to Bitcoin and crypto than what FTX did. Do you believe that? Here's the thing. MicroStrategy, when I looked yesterday, owns about 1.2% of all Bitcoin in the world right now, about 1.2%. They own less than 1 day of trading volume on average of Bitcoin, according to my research, which was quick and over a glass of wine, but I think is accurate. Like, it's just, they could blow out all of their Bitcoin over the course of next week, and it will have some impact on price, but not a huge impact. I can't put numbers to that. Nobody could put numbers to that, but I bet you it's 10, 15, 20%, just like this billionaire Galaxy Digital trading guy said last Thursday on CNBC. Bitcoin could fall 20% after peaking at $100,000. So the whole world is coming to the end because of MicroStrategy. I'm just not buying that. I'm not buying it. Institutions are going to get into it. They're probably going to get into it on a dip. They're going to get into it because the political environment is changing, and I think that's what's going to happen, and it's going to drive in the long term. It's going to drive the price of Bitcoin up. Remember, I'm not giving you financial advice. That's just we're going to see volatility up and down, and that's my take on the situation. I would not buy MicroStrategy. That just seems like an insane leverage play to me. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't buy a BlackRock ETF, and that I would consider. In fact, I went to buy one this morning. I haven't hit the trade yet with the drop this morning, but I will be buying call options to try to lever up on that BlackRock ETF. That will be added to our Mornings with Scott portfolio, which, by the way, is still kicking ass since we started this show last July. So big news of the day was not Bitcoin. Big news of the day was that Trump pledges tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. Wall Street Journal again. I think President-elect Donald Trump pledged that soon after taking office, he will slap steep tariffs on Mexico and Canada, two of America's closest allies, as well as China. And so he's going to put 25% tariffs, he says, on Mexico and Canada for everything. Every imported good goes up 25%, and then an extra 10% on Chinese. There's Chinese imports. There's already a 15% tariff on Chinese imports that is left over from his prior administration, and which the Biden-Harris administration maintained. He says that the tariffs will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Explanation point. Trump wrote in his in reference to the proposed tariffs. So this is a negotiation by Trump to try to get illegal immigrants curtailed and illegal, particularly fentanyl, illegal drugs curtailed. Doing so would likely end up, according to the Wall Street Journal, end up trade agreements that Trump negotiated with the two neighboring countries in his first term, the USMCA. What a terrible acronym. That has always been the United States, Mexico, Canada trade agreement. So just to be clear, this was one of the benchmark achievements from the prior administration of Trump, but he campaigned on ripping up that agreement because it's no good, even though that was the best thing that he did. I'm not anti-Trump, by the way, by any means. I just find it funny that what he's doing here is going against his own agreement, purportedly for immigration issues and drug issues. Do you believe that's true? It's probably true on the southern border. I don't believe it on the Canadian border. We'll talk about that in a minute. Economists have warned that Trump's plans to impose sweeping tariffs could lead to higher prices on goods for inflation for consumers. This is the tariffs cause inflation argument that we already poo-pooed during the election cycle, to the chagrin of many of my listeners who privately texted and emailed me and told me I was completely full of it, that it will actually cause inflation. But I gave my reasons. We don't need to go over that again. Mexico, China, and Canada are the nation's top three suppliers of imported goods, accounting for about 42% of imports to the U.S. this year. Canada and Mexico sent about 8% of their exports to the U.S. Trade was at the center of Trump's successful presidential bid. We already knew that. Musk, according to the Wall Street Journal, was on board supporting this 25% tariff hike against Canada and Mexico. I don't care about Mexico. I want to talk about Canada, obviously. In recent, we don't need to talk about that. Canada, the world's fourth largest oil producer, sent most of its oil to the U.S. It also has an auto industry that is tightly integrated with the American neighbor. It's the same industry. It's not like there's a Canadian auto industry and an American auto industry. They are combined. They are one industry in two countries. You cannot separate them. A tariff is just going to crush. It's just going to crush the auto industry in both countries. And Trump campaigned a lot on Michigan auto workers, which will be killed by these tariffs. Trump has said he wants to renegotiate the USMCA under provisions of the trade deal, allowing for a review in 2026. And Canada has responded strongly, saying that we will put together a team. We're going to put together a team that perhaps can also negotiate on this. So let's start right at the top. First principles. Does Canada really have immigrants trying to cross illegally into the U.S.? Really? I mean, maybe fentanyl, right? Maybe the cartels from Mexico bring the fentanyl up to Vancouver somehow. Maybe it tries to wind its way back down. I can buy that. And we should be doing something about that. But do we have the, like, where do these migrants, these illegal immigrants come from? We don't have southern countries. They're not crossing the northern border from Russia over the Arctic across the sea. That's not really happening. We're a long way from by boat from other places, from South America, from Africa. I don't really know where this is. Now, it is true that the Trudeau government, as awful as they are, they might start fleeing to Canada, fear of deportation, said Mr. Stevens. The opposite should be true. We should be controlling the Canadian border to keep those American, what's the word that I want to use, celebrities out of our country. We don't need that bad influence here. I'm just not buying there's a significant illegal problem. It is true that Trudeau brought in many illegal migrants, if we can put it that way, into Canada. I wasn't really paying too much attention, but they've since curtailed that because it was causing a problem. And I have no doubt that some of those had a plan to find their way down to the U.S. and cause chaos or problems. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But the numbers, what are the numbers? I was researching last night and it was all over the place, but every number I saw was less than 100,000. It was like 10,000, 12,000, 20,000. It was not the millions and millions and millions coming across the southern border. So I'm not really buying this as a serious issue. And what is this really about? Why would Trump be ripping up his own trade deal? Bill Ackman, billionaire hedge fund guy, posted on X last night, to be clear, according to Trump, the 25% tariffs will not be implemented, or if implemented, will be removed once Mexico and Canada stop the flow of illegal immigrants and fentanyl into the U.S. Do you believe that? Do you believe there will ever be a response from Canada that will be enough for Trump to remove the tariffs or not put them on, and there will always be a need for more? I'm predicting the tariffs don't happen. Okay, so I do think that Bill Ackman is right in that regard. He says, in other words, the real Donald Trump is going to use tariffs as a weapon to achieve economic and political outcomes, which are the best interests of America, fulfilling his America First policy. So this to me, this whole fentanyl and migration issue with respect to Canada is what Scott Adams in his persuasion lessons might call a fake because. You just need a reason. A fake because. Just make up a reason to implement something, and then you've created an asset. Oh, you did this, fake because. Therefore, I'm going to put 25% tariffs on you. There's the response to the trigger. Now I have an asset to negotiate away in exchange for something. I just made up a reason. I came up with an asset, and now Canada, I'm going to negotiate with you. What are you going to give me? What are you going to give me to not put the 25% tariffs off? That's what's going on here. It's a negotiation. As Bill Ackman says, in other words, this is a great way for Trump to affect foreign policy changes before he even takes office. All right. Canada. Reading through last night, The Art of the Deal, Mr. Stephen. Yeah, exactly right. Canada was freaking out last night and this morning. Everywhere that I read, the economists, some guy I follow, I don't know who he is, so I won't tell you, from Calgary, University of Calgary, that our GDP in Canada is going to drop 3-4%. He had predicted 2% based on a 10% tariff, and this is a 25% tariff. Nobody said, hey, this is a negotiation. Let's do something about it. And there was no leadership. Nothing from Trudeau that I could find. What's her name? Freeland, who is the deputy prime minister, is like the vice president of the United States, had some sort of ex post about vibes. This is the vibes. Like, what the? Oh my goodness! It's like Kamala Harris and her vibes campaign that didn't work out very well. She didn't use the word vibe, but that's what Freeland is the one who negotiated the last deal where Canada got a terrible deal, much worse than what we had. And she came back and said that she won the negotiation because she lost less than she thought she was going to lose. If I'm in a running race with my kid and I think my kid is going to outrun me by a large gap and it's not quite that big, did I win the race? That's what Friedland has to say. So she's looking at vibes. There's nothing from Trudeau. There's nothing of substance from her. Pierre Poilievre, haven't seen a comment from him unless there was one this morning. Nothing from Maxime Bernier. This is all. We don't have leadership in Canada, and the negotiation has started, as Mr. Stevens says here in the comments, the art of the deal. Well, we can negotiate too. We can negotiate too if we had leadership. I put a post on last night on the X responding to Bill Ackman that Canada needs to fix the border and drugs flow if that is a legitimate issue, which I doubt. But if it is an issue, we need to fix it. That's common sense. That's just being a good neighbor. But Canada also needs to stop softwood exports to the U.S. right now. Just put a stop to it. The U.S. gets about 25% of its lumber from Canada. You want to grow your economy in the U.S., you have you need lumber. You need lumber for construction, and a large chunk of that comes from Canada. Export tariffs and an Indian deal would work. So we could actually put tariffs on the export of lumber to the UF. We could create that market. We could cut a one-year side deal with India, with China, or with other places that we also export a lot of lumber to, and then we could subsidize that BC industry for the period of time that it takes to negotiate. We can negotiate. We can respond. That's just an example. We could do that with cement. We could do it with oil. We are America's number one customer and number one supplier. You don't think we have any leverage? Of course we have leverage, but we won't do it. We won't do it. We're just busy putting a team together. We're going to get killed again up here in Canada unless all of you push in Canada. I know that half the audience is the US, but if you're in Canada, you push your elected officials. What the hell is the response going to be? What is the strategy? Listen, I put in the notes that I want to talk about Drake versus Kendrick Lamar. Do you want to hear that? I mean, I've run out of time. Let me know in the notes here if you want me to keep. You know what? I'm going to spend 3 minutes on this. Let's just get it done. You okay with that? If you think this has been too long, just sign off. I understand. Rap's. This is from the Wall Street Journal again. Rap's biggest beef is moving from the record studio into the courtroom. Superstar artist Drake, a Torontonian, by the way, has filed court documents alleging that Universal Music Group used deceptive business practices to turn rival Kendrick Lamar's diss track into a mega hit. Both rappers are signed to the label. Drake is claiming Universal employed tactics including bots and pay for play to artificially inflate streams of Not Like Us, that would be the name of the track, and a eviscerating track in which Lamar calls Drake a pedophile. So Drake wasn't stoked about that. The spat between Drake and Lamar, whose beginnings date back more than a decade, escalated earlier this year. All right, well, we're going to cut through some of this because we're out of time. The suggestions that UMG would do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue, said a spokesman for Universal Music. Fans choose the music they want to hear. Universal did not rely on chance or even ordinary business practices to break through the noise on Spotify and likely other music platforms, Drake's lawyers wrote. Instead, they launched a campaign to manipulate and saturate the streaming services and airwaves. The filings referenced an unnamed whistleblower who said publicly he was paid by Lamar's label to use bots, software programs designed to mimic human behavior to appear to be real social media accounts, to help Not Like Us achieve 30 million streams on Spotify in the first few days of its release. So you create these bots, BOTS, which is like a little algorithm program to pretend like it's just a machine listening to the music and then doing it over and over a million times. So you get all these streams from these bots that are not legit. That is the allegation. Additionally, the filing said Universal paid social media influencers to promote and endorse the song without disclosing those payments to consumers. And streaming and licensing is a zero-sum game, the petition says. Streaming and licensing is a zero-sum game. Do you believe that? Every time a song breaks through, it means another artist does not. Universal's choice to saturate the music market with Not Like Us comes at the expense of other artists like Drake. I think this is a fascinating. I don't care about Drake. I don't care about Lamar. I don't care about the rapper diss. That's not my age group. Some of you listening may be interested in that or care about that, but I think it is fascinating because from a digital platform perspective, because the use of bots to create followers, fake followers, fake engagement is so common. It's just universal, if you can forgive the pun, throughout the use of social media platforms. And if you have engagement, if you have followers and you can trick someone into believing that's true, you actually get paid. You get paid to have this engagement and his followers, both from the platform and from companies that are trying to find influencers to promote their goods on the social. Oh, look at this person has 200,000 followers and there seems to be some engagement. We should give them free product and pay them to sell that product for us, to promote it, not actually physically sell it. So if it's all fake, isn't that a fraud? Isn't the Drake lawsuit true? I'm not saying Universal did that. I'm saying if Universal did it, is that not true? And I also think about it the other way, just to wrap this up. I've often thought, you go to a YouTube or what else, Facebook, Instagram, and they entice you as a content creator to make a bunch of content, and you spend money on camera, computers. I have over here a podcast studio that's really expensive, and you spend all this time creating the content, putting it out, suffering through the early days when no one is listening at all. And the platforms promise you money for their great content creators. There's formulas for this. And if people start listening and they're engaging with your content, you get paid for that. Many people make a living from content creation. That is the modern world. But then there's other people who get shadow banned, who the platform, a YouTube or Facebook, in an example, hypothetical example, crush the content so no one could ever see it. I've talked to you about, I had a Martinis with Scott hat on, and Instagram blocked the clip because I was wearing that hat. At least it's not Instagram, sorry, TikTok. At least TikTok tells you, but the Facebook and the YouTubes of the world, do this shadow ban thing where they block your content, but they don't even let you know. How is that not fraud? How are you not enticed to create content, spend a bunch of money, spend a bunch of time and hours, like a lot of time and a lot of hours, and then no one gets to see it because you're shadow banned and they won't tell you? That's just bullshit to me. I've always thought that should be fraud, and somebody should be starting a class action suit against that. That would be super interesting. By the way, I'm not complaining about my channel. We get lots of interaction. I do not believe we were shadow banned. I think we were once. We did a show on YouTube with Maxime Bernier, and during the first election, and nobody, when he started the Libertarian Party in Canada, and that did not go over well. Did not go over well at all. So learn my lesson. We stay away from having those sorts of people on the show. I am well over time. Catherine, I agree, Scott, so much put out there using technology, a fake comment for profit, one of my peeves. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Anything else I should look for on YouTube here? I don't see anything else. Sorry for going so long. We will see you tomorrow. And then I think I'm going to take Thursday, Friday off for American Thanksgiving and Black Friday, even though I'm not there. But, you know, a good chunk of the audience is from the US. We'll see how it goes. We're going to play this by ear as I usually do. Thanks all. Signing off.